Hey guys. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. All things Social Security in our live stream. For lunch, I actually just had a hot Italian sausage that I baked them to cook them in what would be the combo air fryer baker thing. My husband, if he was here, would cringe because he likes to do it the slow way in the skillet. And anyway, I'm going to check and see if you guys can hear me. Ah, Beth caught me to it. Beth, you're so funny. Thank you. All right. Where are we at? First, let me just give you a couple of videos in advance that are coming out. Aside from fraud law review, which always comes out on Friday, and this is a 3-time violator of something. Then we have something about, I believe this might have been stemming from a Q&A clip, age and disability, and whether a certain kind of age in a certain kind of case would be a strong case. Would it be a grid case? So we kind of touched on that. And then there's probably an attachment about grids and how they work, I'm guessing, at the end of that. There's also going to be something about any issues. If you have LTD, long-term disability insurance, with your employer, should that in any way implicate whether you do or do not file for Social Security disability? So we go into that a bit. And I should add, some people have the same question about workers' comp. I know we have videos on this, but just to throw it out there, if a workers' comp lawyer tells you you can't file for Social Security disability while your workers' comp case is going on, it's false. Okay. Another one is refusing recommended surgery. We've touched on this in various aspects. And this one, we kind of touch on how to maybe mitigate the fact that you might be refusing surgery. And this, I'm sure, came from someone's question. So anyway, those are just some of the things coming up. So let me get rid of that and come back here. Okay. We have Eddie Garcia in the house, nice and early, as usual, Eddie, which is all good. Better early than late, right? And Eddie says, now remember, Eddie, as a SSI child and trying to figure out how best, I think, spend the back benefits when you get them. Is that it? To spend them and how to document so it's clear that you are spending them for things that were related to the needs of the child and not just something for yourself. Which, again, as a parent, you have a lot of leeway, right? We've kind of talked about that. So Eddie says, and by the way, I also see Deb Lindley here, and I'm so happy to see you here, Deb. You're hanging in there like the strong lady you are. Jesse, MCK, I see. Kitty, good morning to you too. Beth Prince, of course, who was, before I even asked, had said that you can hear me, which is good. La Lulu's in the house. Good to see you. Steve Henderson, nice to see you again. RD, always good to see you. John Calamus, nice to see you back again. Carol, and Carol, I'm not sure, how do we say it? Do we say it Lechner? I forget. I think it was Lechner, right? Good to see you, Carol. Let's say, okay. So you guys are here bright and early. I appreciate that. So figure the sooner everybody gets in, potentially the sooner we all get out, right? All right. So Eddie says, we finally received the monthly in the account. Okay. So your child is getting the monthly SSI, right, Eddie? And back pay in the dedicated account. Awesome. My friend is saying she doesn't have Zelle. So this is the friend that you owe money to because she helped foot some of these bills that you had to foot to keep a roof over your child's head. And the cars maybe, or the transportation. She doesn't have Zelle set up, so I can't send her and memo it as back payment for rent. Okay, now I did see that Deb Lindley, who's very knowledgeable, shared you some really good tips. And I agree. You could do it. Did you get your checks yet, by the way? Another part of Eddie's problem last week, I think, Eddie, was it that you didn't have checks yet for the dedicated account? I mean, if she can wait a week or two, I think it'll be a nothing burger. But if not, I think Deb's right. Deb says, not to call you out here, Deb, but it was really helpful. Usually I don't get involved in like the little interminglings that you guys have in here. But Eddie did, I think Deb did say something about making a little contract, which she says, I've loaned you X amount verbally over the course of time, and it totals this amount. And you have promised to pay me back, and now you are. Something to that effect, right, Deb? I think that's not a bad idea. you have confirmation from the person you're sending it to that it was for a loan, not for a pretend, let's just send it over to her and say it was. Because now they've got her saying it. And, you know, you could do that on a 795 form. You could fill it out right there where she says, you know, I've loaned him X amount over the course of time, and he's promised to pay me back. And I understand that he's going to be paying me back or you know, today or whatever, very soon. It definitely was a loan or whatever. So Eddie continues, will this be a problem? I'm trying to figure out how to have that part correctly documented. Certainly if they have you saying it under oath and the lender saying it under oath, they're not supposed to be assuming someone's lying, you know, particularly when you're under oath. And because there will be no evidence to the contrary, because this is exactly what happened, you should be fine. But getting it in writing from the recipient, like a receipt anyway, but documenting that it was a loan in particular, and maybe you could throw in there when it started, you know, and how much the total was. You don't necessarily have to document each and every payment she gave you, but what the total loan was. I've had many, many SSI people, parents even, who had footed all sorts of stuff for their child pending an SSI award, or it could even be SSD or DAC, because it's really the representative payee duties, right? To show you're not squandering someone else's money on your own behalf. So, and they've done that, and they documented, they did it by check though, but it doesn't really matter. I do like checks because you get a canceled check back. And it's proven, not just like, I gave her cash and then she agreed. So if you can wait for a check, I'd wait for a check. Because it's going to be clear that she got the money and she cashed it or deposited it. And so Deb in the house, I just got to stand up and say and read her thing. Hi, gosh, friends. Glad to be here again this week. Ready for this crazy ride I'm on to stop. I'll be 61 in 18 days. It's time. Oh, Deb, I just had my birthday like a week and a half ago or something. Yeah, hopefully yours is going to be all perfectly fine soon. And Jesse MCK, I could just say Jesse Mick, right? Says hello. So hello. Let's see. Come throw out the questions, guys. Let's see. I can see everyone can hear. Blah blah blah. John Kalama says I had my hearing this morning. At the end. Judge asked if I was agreeable to get future records or exam. Should I be worried? Well, that sounds, John, like he's not making a decision yet. He's leaving the hearing open. I don't know. Were you pro se, or did you have a representative with you at the hearing? Sometimes if it's clear that not all the records are in, like let's say you didn't get all the records, let's say you're pro se and you didn't realize that you have to make sure your records are there, right? And send them to the judge so he can see them. Maybe it came out in the record that there was some that they didn't have. Maybe you saw the list and you said, oh, they're not everything here. And he's giving you, if you were an attorney or a rep and you never brought up that there were missing records and that you were trying to get them, he wouldn't probably give you this accommodation. But because maybe you're unrepresented, or you were represented and you did do the 5-day letter that says, we have these outstanding records, please give us time, even if the hearing takes place, which is something that we have to do. And it's almost every case, because usually those last few records are not yet available, and we want to get everything up to the last minute. So should you be worried? Not necessarily, but sometimes they will, because they are going to make sure the record is as thorough as possible before they deny, they make sure they bend over backwards to let you get everything in. And then they deny. And then other times they don't deny. And I think they just want to make sure the record is completely thorough. So no one who audits them after they award a person can then say, well, this wasn't so thorough. We didn't see what the result of the surgery was. Maybe it was a really good surgery and he's going to be better. And this award should, in theory, I'm partially speculating here, but I've seen hearings held open with awards and I've seen hearings held open for additional records and then denials. So I don't prefer it. But I always ask for additional time to get on the records if they're missing. And I always say, Judge, if in fact you can't award with what you have right now on the record, on this very thorough record, would you, if you can't do that, would you allow us extra time to get in the most recent? And they have to be kind of relevant. Like if it's just going to be a physical exam that you have every year with your, not you, John, but someone else might have a gynecologist annual or something, you know, that might not be relevant in terms of making a different finding. But I don't know. I mean, I don't really prefer it, but it doesn't mean you lost or you won at this point. But it means you have not won at this point. There is no obvious award. Sometimes we can tell from a judge between the questions to the vocational expert and the vocational expert's response. The judges, a lot of things kind of thrown together. None of them are controlling or conclusive. But then the judge's demeanor in questions, and is he asking questions that are clearly going to bring out answers in favor of the defendant, or is he asking questions that in no way help the defendant when different answers might? So it really depends on a lot of things, but clearly he hasn't made an official decision yet. So it definitely hasn't awarded you yet. Right. Okay. By the way, we have everybody's out there. I have an extra dog here today. I'm dog sitting. So a young man with a pup can go to work and make a paycheck. Fortunately, the new dog that he has, which is a shelter dog, very sweet young dog, very hyper, gets along with my dogs, which we worked on a couple weeks ago when he first got her, to hopefully give some area where the dog can play and meet other dogs and stuff, because his family's a little afraid of dogs, so not working out too well. But I have 3 already, so what's some more scratches on the floor, right? She did do already. I think she gets nervous though, and she's not really sure of how things work and how to tell people she has to go out. I think is part of the problem, and she gets really fearful of being reprimanded. I noticed she's afraid of a mop or a broom, so I have a feeling she's gotten a beating or 2 in her past with maybe a stick of some kind, because she'll go running away with her tail between her legs. It's really sad. She's really sweet. Does nip, not us because she knows us now, but when she's afraid of other people, which is not good. Deb, good luck. Tara Lynn's in the house. Hi, Tara. Good to see you. That cute little picture you have there. Desi S. Now, Desi, have we met? I don't know that I recall, but I love the picture of your dog. Is that your dog? Is that a German Shepherd? We had a German Shepherd named Elsa. She died a year ago, April. We missed her very much. She was our queen. That's when we had 4 dogs full time. Now we have 3. Okay, so Desi says, and thanks for being here, Desi, the AC doesn't reweigh the medical evidence, correct? Like the ALJ, correct. They mainly check if the judge followed the SSA rules and laws. But the ALJ did not refer to the grid rule 55 plus, and I had no RFC on file. The judge decides the RFC, so he can do that himself, just so you know. That's what he decides, what the RFC is. And I don't remember which paragraph it might be. It might be, because they can have a variety of paragraphs, but it's one of the bolded paragraphs in your decision, Desi, says what your RFC is. And he doesn't have to refer to a grid at all. He doesn't have to, particularly if you don't meet the RFC exertional level that would implicate the grids. You have to be a certain age, you have to have a certain RFC, you have to have non-transfer, all that, then the grids don't apply. So I know some people think it's just they auto apply. No, that there's an opportunity for them to apply and be checked. But as soon as there's a no to the 3 prongs that you have to prove, which we've talked about before, let me know if you want me to repeat them. if one of them fail, then there is no grid application. So I don't know that he has to say grids or medical vocational rules, because if a rule doesn't apply, of the thousands of rules, he's not necessarily going to mention it. But you could tell if probably your RFC is too high in his determination. Because someplace in that decision, he also says whether you could do your prior work. And if that's step 4, and if you can't do your prior work and he acknowledges that, then the question was, is there any other jobs he could do? And then he would pick up those jobs. But they don't go into a medical, a grid if it doesn't apply to you based on the facts found. I just want to scroll up here and see if I missed anybody, because I thought I jumped something real quick. Nope, I guess not. Okay, Carol. Hi, Carol. Dimple's in the house. Hi, Dimple. Dimple, I haven't gotten my mail, and I'm so sorry. My son's been taking my truck to work every day since school started. Yeah, I'm being overly easy. Trying to keep a teenager from being grumpy. So I work here, and then he comes back, and if I need it, like today, I'll probably have to take the truck and run a couple errands later. But I've been letting him take it because I haven't really needed to run errands. I did a lot over the weekend. Food's in the house, plenty of milk, coffee. So we have to. Can I technically walk to the mailbox? Yes, but I don't. We're in a community where you have to go walk. It's they're all in one spot and all that. So I'm thinking that's where that coffee might be, and I love my coffee. Okay. John says, Judge has up-to-date records. My CE was in April, May 24, and I'm not, when you say FCE, that's not something technically that the SSA orders. You might say RFC, and I'm not sure what you're referring to. FCE, by the way, usually stands for Functional Capacity Examination. So not sure what you're meaning with that. They give them with workers' comp cases. It's not exactly the same with SSA. The RFC, residual functional capacity, is an assessment. It's not an exam, and it's assessed from all the medical records from all your examining doctors. So up-to-date records. Well, did he say it was going to send you to another CE exam since it was sold, maybe? Or, I mean, in what context did he say, would you be willing for more records to come in? I mean, there has to be a context, right? So I wish you had a copy of the audio. I know you guys don't readily have that. I know your attorney, if you had an attorney, John, he can go into the electronic file and download the audio. It's ready usually the same day, if not early the next day. Tara Lynn says, how important is it to have a contact person or third-party report? In my personal opinion, not very, but let's go on. I only have my husband, and if I believe I meet a listing, should I put this in my remarks or let it SSA determine this? Everyone thinks they meet a listing. The SSA doesn't really care what you think. I mean, I'm not trying to make them seem rude, but it's a medical decision. It's not. I almost don't know any claimant who doesn't say that they don't meet a listing. Everyone thinks they do. They're under the impression that the listing, if their condition's listed, they must meet it, but they don't really get into the nitty-gritty of the fine print. And while there's very objective numbers in many of the listings, there's also a significant amount of discretion. Like when they say, well, has she had marked or extreme symptoms and blah, blah, blah. Well, marked and extreme are a bit of opinion, right? Some people call something marked, like we will, and someone else will say, that's just moderate. So that's where the listings, when you think you meet it, not necessarily in the eyes of the SSA. Now, I would give them, just to allow them to check all their boxes. Some, very rarely does someone not have a contact person, but I have some that don't have any family or friends. I mean, literally very, very, very alone people. The reason why I don't, even though you would give it, because you want to be showing that you're fully cooperative. You don't want to be that person who's telling the SSA, this is what you need and only this, and I'm giving you nothing else. it's not going to bode well, probably. But, and I know you didn't mean it that way, but I'm just throwing it out there for everybody else. I don't find third-party reports to do anything except, and this is similar to a function report in certain ways, and don't misconstrue this, because I had one person, I brought this up not that long ago, say, well, I was told that you can't win on a function report. That's true, but you can lose on it. So you have to be very careful about what you say and don't say. I think the same with the third-party report. If you say one thing and your husband says you're jogging around the block for 30 minutes every night when you're saying you have a bad back, obviously that they're going to love that third-party report, because it's going to really show a story that's contrary to what you're claiming, and it's from a person they wouldn't expect to lie about it. So that's it can give crumbs for denial, right? It's not medical records, but it's a witness saying this. Now, if the report is good, I often find, and this is usually in an ALJ decision, not in the DDE at the lower levels, I will often see an ALJ win, lose, or draw say they're not putting a lot of weight on the third-party report because it's a family member, and they would have a motive, or obviously they want their person to win. So for this is the reason why I say it can be used to hurt you, not help you. But as long as what he's saying is true and he thinks it through properly, and he can use those function report videos, because they all are the same questions on his version and your version, except he's talking about you. So sometimes people really give an inaccurate answer because they're not really thinking it through the way they should be. So that's an idea if he's going to fill one out. Maybe he wants to educate himself a little bit on what some of those things are, and what would be red flags that if you accidentally say it. Like, if you say, what does she do all day? She gets up, she eats breakfast, she lays down, she has dinner, and it's like, well, obviously it's not entirely accurate. You do other things, including go to the bathroom, maybe brush your teeth, whatever. They're not going to hold a lot of water on that, and that's not going to hurt your case, because they're going to realize that he's just being kind of vague. But in other ways, like, let's say he doesn't know if you have troubles in the bathroom because you guys don't talk about it and you go privately, he'll say no. And maybe you do. Maybe you are gently getting up and down from the toilet because of a bad back. Maybe you have difficulties, cleaning, reaching behind you. And this is really, really common. That's why I bring it up, guys. It's like majority of people, by the time they get really, really impaired, it could be the shoulders, the back, the arms just won't reach that far without pain or whatever. That's something your spouse might not know about. Maybe you just shower more often, or just do your best and deal with the pain. So there are things that spouse might not know, and therefore saying everything's fine is inaccurate, So I think if someone doesn't know, it's better for them to say, I don't know, I don't see her do this. Then it's at least honest. Sometimes people claim to know when they don't, because they're confusing what they assume or what they saw once happen as being okay all the time. La Lulu says, my fam member, Liaison, lives far away. Would she be allowed to join me during physical exam by video call or speakerphone, since she cannot accompany me in person? If you're talking about a CE, you'd have to ask the CE doctor. I know sometimes they don't want anybody in the room, except their little nurse or whatever. But then I've seen other ones where they're totally fine with it. So it's very possible. You can ask. Although they can't see you if they're on. And video call, what are you going to do? Prop up your phone and make the exam be in front of the phone? You don't want to really impede the exam. So, if you have another friend, that might work better. Wayne C. Hi, Wayne. I really enjoy your channel. I'm glad for that, Wayne. I appreciate. Kitty says, Tara Lynn, I do not have anyone listed on my paperwork other than me and my doctors. I don't even have an emergency contact. I was still approved for SSDI, so maybe not that important. Put it this way, it's not going to supersede your medical. If your medical says you're disabled, all this other stuff is, A, can tear you down if it's said wrong, or B, if your medical is on that fence, that stuff can help you. You know what I mean? If it's supportive of it, it can't work by itself. But so every case is different, Kitty, like yours and many people who have no context, particularly like my loaners, they're still going to win because they're medical. You see what I'm saying? Remember, a listing has no bearing. Listing, they don't even do a CE exam necessarily. Sometimes people win on a listing because their medical records are so well done by their doctors and very clear. And they don't ask for function reports or anything. Boom, boom. So they don't even want your statement. It's like, she's got it. So, but here it is. They asked for it. So, and she does have a husband, and they know it because she put it in her application. But again, that doesn't mean a husband's willing. So they're not going to make you be denied because you didn't provide it. But if they were on the fence and there is nothing, you know what I mean? The optics of being because as we know, they will deny, like if they're not all the way there and you don't do a function report, they will also deny, or they'll also say that that's why we never got your information. I do think a third party is a little different though, not nearly as important. So, take it for what you want it to be. I have had people who are like, no, I can't ask my spouse. She's an idiot, or he's an idiot, or we don't even talk. So it depends if your spouse is cooperative. You can't force them. And so there is that too. Some people don't use their spouse. They use a friend or a sibling or someone who knows them well. But if it's someone who lives far away from you, they don't really see you every day either. So everything that they're saying is kind of hearsay from you. And I don't think that's very effective. Again, if they say, well, she tells me that she goes jogging around the block, for 30 minutes a day, that won't be good. So, you kind of want to know the person's going to be able to do the right job, I suppose. Jesse Mick says, I've been denied twice while represented by an attorney. I'm overwhelmed and don't know what to do. So I assumed you were denied on initial and recon, and now you're heading to a hearing, maybe, Jesse? I think. If you're, I don't know what your vocational profile is, like, are you under 50? You guys, we talk about this all the time. I wish they would give us the numbers and, publish them. How many claimants under 50 prevail? How many in their 40s? I don't know that they give us that. Do they know it? Of course they know it. But they've never, ever documented it for the public. I would be curious to see, because I can only imagine that under 50s, it is a very small percentage who prevail. And those that do have done a lot of work to get there, unless they are so flat out listing. And again, that's a lot of times listing takes a lot of proof too, particularly because of that discretionary thing. So the judge has to be convinced that medical evidence that talks about the market, or doesn't say the words market extreme, amounts to market extreme. And that's a discretionary finding, right? What market and extreme? Market's less than extreme. What if you only have one? It has to be extreme in certain, like in the mental sphere. Or you could have two markets. What if he finds you have one extreme and the other one's moderate? You lose. No, one market and one moderate, you lose. Do you know what I mean? It's very, It's got the discretionary component even for a listing. John says, I had attorney. Judge was upset. SSA got some duplicate records. You know, this whole duplicate record rule, let me just go over it real quick, guys. It's a real pain in the rear. The judge might be entirely wrong. I had a conversation with a judge's assistant. In the interest of expediency, particularly when we are now now I'm back on. Were you guys able to hear me, or did that go black? Can you just let me know if you could hear me? Well, it blacked out for me up until this second. It was not my screens. It was the StreamYard screen. I'm just curious. I froze. Okay, Kitty. Kitty, could you hear me while I froze? Could you guys hear me? Well, I'm going to continue on anyway while we have you. So the duplicate records is, we're not supposed to send duplicate records. However, there is narrative from the SSA that says a version that you get, say, from the official set SSA orders from there's, however they order it. It's not, if you look at it, it's not exactly, if it's 50 pages, your portal might be 75. I mean, we do our best never to send duplicate dates, like the same visit. However, when you send portal records, they reiterate your history on every visit, your meds on every visit, your past and present medical problems for every visit. It's very duplicative in that way. So I had sent up only like 3 weeks worth of records, which were post-hearing, because the record was left open, which is what we were talking about earlier. So I'm always worried about that. It's a younger person, so the prospects of denial are not minute. And the judge's assistant, who I've worked with before, she's very nice. She said, "Oh, Judge so-and-so was looking at, that's like another 500 pages." I'm like, I know. I go, but it's only these dates. I go, this is the it's not duplicative of any of the dates from before. It just has duplicative stuff in it because they regurgitate everything from before in every visit record. It's very annoying. That is a problem with Epic MyChart. So I wish Epic MyChart, who's the gold standard, I feel like, for portals, come on, get your stuff together. They can come talk to me. I got a bunch of suggestions on how they can make it a much better, user-friendly, cleaner. Might be a few options they could offer to get that done. A few clicks of the button people can choose. But for now, it can be, so your judge, it could be like if, and this is at the lower levels, we shoot up, and this is the SSA's fault, I think. We shoot up, say, to make sure there's something in the adjudicator's hands, the portal records from X to Y. And because asking for the records is going to take longer and cost the claimant money, right? We still do that, but if we don't have to, we don't, because now the progress notes are right in the portal records. Ideally, the portal would let you just get all the progress notes from all the dates and nothing else if that's what you want. But they don't do that. They make you get 50 pages for every visit, 75 pages for every visit. It is ludicrous. So I did explain to that assistant that it's not duplicative, and I'm really sorry, but that's, that's the way they come out, but it is not duplicative. So your guy might have either done, he might be in the same boat and it's not duplicative, or he sent in stuff on initial, like a good boy, which we should be doing. Some attorneys actually do work on initial and recon. And then the SSA went ahead and ordered the full kit and caboodle anyway, which, by the way, they have to do if you only send up 1 day of records because you happen to have it, because the SSA says, "Oh, send up what records you have." And then the adjudicator did do his job by ordering the full set. You're going to have at least 1 day of duplicative records, right? At least duplicate days. I bet you the records don't look the same. I bet you there's different page lengths. I bet you, nothing's going to look the same, but it's going to have the same progress note, for instance. So it is one of those rules that is almost impossible to meet. It's like fighting gravity, but it is the rule. And some judges are really, nitpicky about it. I think I'm going to have in all of my submissions a little stamp that says these dates are non-duplicative. The way it's provided by the provider to us happens to include reiterations in every visit of medications and history and ridiculous reiteration, and they don't allow us to pull that out. And another rule. This is where it gets a little complicated too. We're not allowed to cherry pick records. I can't just go in there and say, well, I'm just going to pull this out or pull that out. Now, I have pulling out progress notes and said, this is just the progress note from this date, because I don't want to, give you 50 more pages of BS. And I hope that suffices. I mean, it's not like we're manipulating something and hiding something, We're trying to help them realize that everyone's trying to meet the non-duplication rule as well as the no cherry picking rule. So they basically give us an impossible task because they do somewhat conflict. So that's probably what, the judge getting upset, he needs to, grow a set, or she, and realize that that's just part of their job. And there's going to be duplicates with everyone trying their best not to duplicate. I mean, we do go through and we find out every date that's already in the file so that we don't. From Dr. Jones, we know when the last date with Dr. Jones is, and we only order after that. We put in a lot of time to do the chronologies all through the whole case. My clients probably hate it because I'm always like trying to make sure everything, does this sound right? But this is one of the reasons that, this kind of administrative grooming of the files to make sure no judge is going to be upset like your judge. But, they need to realize that we can't follow both rules always at the same time, the non-duplicative rule and the no cherry picking rule. So let's see. Kitty says, I keep hearing your voice in the back of my head saying, I would be checking it regarding the mail for my CDR paperwork. What? Kitty? My body will no longer allow me to do that. Why would you be checking for CDR paperwork, Kitty? Is that because I'm not sure I get this. I would be checking it. I would be checking it. Right? You're in a CDR? What would you be checking? Let me go. You have some more to say. Kitty says, I mentioned writing a letter about the need for continuing benefits pending CDR appeal, which I have already. Oh, all right. I think I know what she's talking about. I think she's talking about if you lose your CDR, when they make a decision that you're ceased because you're no longer disabled or you work too much or whatever, and you're going to appeal that CDR, continuing disability review denial, cessation. Let me go back up here. If you know you're in a CDR, because you only have 10 days from the time they send you a notice that you lost to ask for continuing benefits, is why I say someone's got to be checking. Because if you don't check your mail every 2 weeks and it came in on one day and you get it 14 days later because you didn't check your mail, you could very feasibly be out of luck if your desire was to continue your benefits pending your appeal, because they'll shut off. I don't like the 10-day rule. I think it's too short in this day and age, but it is what it is. And when they do that, you mentioned, I'm stuttering. You mentioned writing a letter about the need. It's not like mentioning writing a letter. The actual directions on the denial say, if you want to continue your benefits, notify us within 10 days that you want to continue your benefits pending this appeal. You know what I mean? So a letter is the way to do it. Obviously, you get proof that it received by them I'd fax it. I'd probably overnight it as well. I mean, I just like a paper trail, protection. So no, I think if you got a CDR denial, Kitty, you don't send a request for pending benefits when you haven't lost a CDR. It's going to be the request is not valid until you've lost a CDR. So I think, but you are saying you lost a CDR, you must have gotten the results, or did you not get the results of your CDR and you're just assuming you lost, or you will lose? I don't know if they take them preemptively. I would be surprised if they do, just because it's bureaucracy and they don't have a system to monitor that, is my guess. Tara says, a radiologist documented my x-ray, that my x-ray was normal. But 2 months later, my rheumatologist viewed the same x-ray and said I definitely had OA, osteoarthritis, right? Should I address this or let the SSA find this in my medical records? Where are you at? Are you at initial or recon? I don't think it hurts at all to tell them that the radiologist that said the x-rays are normal, this specialist rheumatologist, who's not a radiologist, but I'm sure they know how to recognize OA because that's what they diagnose, I would think. Now, did your rheumatologist, it sounds like you're saying when they saw the x-ray, they said the x-ray actually showed OA. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt. And it's not really being disrespectful. You can just say, it's all these records. I just wanted to point out that although the radiologist said this x-ray was normal, the rheumatologist who actually practices osteoarthritis reports that that x-ray shows OA. If your rheumatologist says you have OA, but it's not based on that x-ray, then obviously don't relate it to the x-ray, because the x-ray can look normal and you can still have osteoarthritis because it can be in a different area. So, but it's never like a no to write a letter to the fact finder, adjudicator, even the ALJ, and say, just wanted to point out that this was kind of maybe a mistaken reading by the radiologist, because a later rheumatologist who actually practices osteoarthritis for a living said that the x-ray shows osteoarthritis. And you just show the report, attach the report to your letter, even though it's going to be in something else. You can have it in a correspondence. And I say that for that only because you're saying that it's a blatant contradiction of something that's not helpful. And I think, yeah, maybe you do want to put it in front of his face. I mean, osteoarthritis is not fully disabling in the gross spiel of things, but it can help you depending on your age, vocational profile. It could help. Maybe the mere fact of it would negate heavy work and medium work. And maybe that's all you need to do, depending on your age, is prove that I can't do more than light work. And then, so the osteoarthritis, if there's not something else obvious, that could close that little loop, I guess. Jessie says she's 60 and receiving treatment for degenerative joint disease and honestly don't know. Oh, Jessie, and you do have an attorney, right? Let me just go back up. I mean, you have a helpful. Where is that? Where are you, Jessie? I'm blowing through here, and that's probably why I can't find it. Hold on. Oh, by the way, anyone who's watching this, hopefully tomorrow on replay, who probably would do that if they weren't here today, I just want to say hi. And thanks for popping in for the replay. Oh, Jessie had said, I've been denied choice while represented by an attorney. I can't speak to it. You have DJD. Have you been treating for it to show that it actually bothers you today and always? There's so many different things. There's no way to really know. Degenerative joint disease. I mean, you have a good vocational profile for the age part, but let's say you came, Jessie, from a high-skilled sedentary background and there's no reason to think you can't transfer those skills to a different job, even if you couldn't do that old job, then, that would be why you wouldn't say meet a grid at age 60. There are ways to, a properly done work history report. If you've been denied twice, you might have done the old work history report, which doesn't go to a lot of the details. When I have people who have old work history reports or the old version, we redo them with the new one, because then we can really bang home the points that really would show that their work was more arduous, even if it was a sedentary job. Sometimes sedentary jobs have a, half hour a week of something a little bit more than just sedentary. All right, now I'm lost. Now I'm going too far, right? Okay. I'm going to try to get back in where I was. Checking Kitty. We did Katie. We did Tara. Yeah, Deb, I think with Jessie, it's her. There's something lacking in her evidence that is needed for, say, the grids. And DJG is generally not going to be a listing. And she's got rheumatology. Something's lacking there, Jessie. You need to speak to your lawyer if you still have. I assume you're heading to hearing. Would that be fair? Or are you thinking of reapplying? What's going on? Carol Lechner. Carol. I've always rescued, but they usually carry some behavior issues. Oh, with the dogs. Yeah, this one does have behavior issues. She's very sweet, but she's very fearful. So when she first meets someone, she barks at them. Bark. Even the family, not us, because the first time I met her in the driveway, I just sat down. I said, "Hey, but I've been around dogs my whole life, and if someone has not, or the family has not, and they're fearful of dogs, because some areas, if you're not around dogs and all you do is hear about dog bites, you're fearful." So, and she did nip. She didn't nip me, but I think she has nipped very innocent people, not hard or anything, but like, how they use their mouth like a hand. But I think she's in training right now with an actual trainer. So the young people are putting their money where their mouth is, trying to get this all well done. I find her to be, I think it's doable with someone who has the time. I wouldn't have the time. I'm just babysitting. So somebody can work. But I go out there with little treats, and I do the sitting and all that stuff. I did it with all 4 of them. I made them all sit and be gentle and take a little something, just like the lowest level of any kind of training. RD says, August 27, 2025, I was denied. Oh, getting ready to appeal with my rep. My onset is 6/24. Just had another surgery, 6/25. Chronic bladder, shoulder, nerve root pain. Any advice? How old are you again, RD? I don't know did all your newer medical records get in on recon? Oh, you were denied on initial, right? So now you're going to recon. Just get change of evidence in there. Your representative has a copy of the DDE. He can see what they found you at and see how they misinterpreted the evidence, if they did, and where to put the focus on to get that whole narrative changed. Oh, I have a dog under my feet. My goodness. Let's see. Steve Henderson. If your diary is 5 years and the date comes and goes, you did not get CDR, does that mean you're good for another 5 years, or can it come? Yeah, I think it can come at any time. I think they're just late. And usually the diary is 5 to 7. It's usually not just a flat 5. So there is that too. But yeah, they're going to be late because remember, they took people, they killed off. They didn't do CDRs for X number of months, or no new CDRs anyway, at the end of 2024. So that there's this whole need for CDRs in 2025 and beyond. you know, plus workers that have to get in there and do them. So, yeah. John Calamus, FCE, functional capacity exam. They don't have those per se in SSA with that verbiage. Your consultative exam is somewhat of an exam to see what your you know, whether you fall below a certain level of minimal functioning of sorts. It's kind of an expression that they use in workers' comp and maybe some LTDs. Constitutional immunity 2.0. Okay, I won after 3 years of fighting SSA. DDS idiots. Filed age 60, now 63. ALJ approved me before hearing. Awesome. OTR. Not happy paying federal taxes and lump sum over 4K. Your lump sum is 4K, so you have a pretty small back pay. My wife on SSDI and my SSDI totaled 80K. Criminal. Well, you'll be happy to know that they just increased your... No, actually, you're only 63. That's for 65ers. Yeah. Well, lump sum, you say 4K. That's small. Did you is that's not a typo, is it? Constitutional? So the SSDI you get and your spouse gets totals 80,000 a year. Well, it's a nice amount. It's more than most people. So, you know, that means you're each getting what, 30-something thousand a year, 40,000 a year. That's I would say far greater than the average Social Security disability. For that, I'm glad for you. Yeah, the taxation is kind of stinks. And check your state too. Do they tax you too? Do they want their little piece? I can't wait till the day when there's no tax on Social Security. That will be nice. Hasn't happened yet, but they're certainly working on it with a lot of pushback. I might add, a lot of pushback. Okay. Billy Parker asks, hi, Billy. How do you win both SSI and SSDI? Well, you have to be super poor. So I wouldn't strive to win both. Put it that way. You're in a bad spot if you're winning both. To win the SSDI, you have to be insured for the time period that you claim you're disabled and prove it. Prove you're disabled at a time when you were insured for SSDI, and be poor enough for SSI for any month from the time you were disabled and forward. And that's all you have to do. I mean, really, I don't want people to be eligible for both because that means that they are super poor. That means their SSDI is really puny, tiny, and it doesn't even cover as much as SSI, which is the poverty rate, right? Just to keep people off the total poverty rate. So if you fit that bill, you just apply for both. Make sure you have an SSI application in, because if you had an SSDI application in, it does not automatically create an SSI application. You have to do that very specifically. They're going to want to speak to you. Whether they get the application notice by mail or otherwise, they're going to want to speak to you and get your financial situation to see if you, at the time you apply at least, ostensibly are poor enough for it. And then they will open up that case, and the two will go together all along to find out the question of whether you are disabled. So that's all you have to do. It's super simple in terms of not a lot of extra work. If you need to have both to get up to that $900 and something a month of SSI between the two of them, then you need to do it for that reason. SSI will also get you Medicaid, because if you're poor, but too much for SSI, but still poor, Medicaid would be great. But Medicare would also be great. And you can sometimes get dual if you have both. But the medical battle is identical. So we do them all the time. In fact, I always try to push people to just if they're close, if they could be eligible for SSI, just do it. Even if their later SSD is going to knock out the SSI, there might be a few months when they don't get SSD because of the waiting period or whatever, and they could get SSI for those months. And that can sometimes put, what, $900 and something, almost $1,000 a month times up to 5 months, $5,000 in their pocket. It pays the attorney fee that would otherwise come out of their other back benefit. So, you know, one way or the other, it's all good. La Lulu says, come on. Why is my clicker not working out? Oh, for God's sake. This site is really having issues. Oh, it's just slow. Maybe I'm too speedy for it. My trusted liaison family member is a practitioner, though not my actual provider. Can I request the exam findings report be sent to her? Yeah, I suppose. You know, they have that little form where you're supposed to put that, right? La Lulu. But I see that oftentimes it never goes to the doctor. Like someone just doesn't take the action. If you have an attorney, they can get a copy of it and send it right to you, and then you can give it to whoever you want. Pros and cons of having results sent to current providers. Well, is the report show your problems? If it speaks as if you're totally fine, how will your providers take it? Do your providers even know you've applied? Do they have a bias against applying? Do you want them to know that you've applied if they might be, wow, I hear those birds. I think I'm in a jungle out there. Yeah, I mean, it depends. If you have a really compassionate doctor who you're close with, I could imagine a really crappy CE exam might actually get a little under their skin, and they might want to help make clear that, without saying it, but making their records a little bit more astute, a little more acuity into your problems than they would otherwise have, because, you know, the main reason people get denied is because their provider records are weakly written, don't cover things, don't cover realities. And if the realities aren't covered by a medical professional, there is no medical evidence of them. So that's why so much of it hangs on the quality of our medical industrial complex. Okay. Deb Lindley says, oh, she's talking to Jess. I don't want to get in there. R&D, I'm saying R&D, like research and development. RD says, I'm 56. That's right. I believe grid 202.6 might be a good listing. Never rely on a grid. You prove the case through your RFC. A grid will happen organically, but an RFC will not. And if they're not going to go with a grid, which most do not, you're going to want to have that RFC drilled home. And the evidence for your RFC can go towards helping prove those discretionary aspects. Oh, you know what? I'm babbling about listings. You're talking about grid. Oh, you know what? Because you said good listing. It's not a listing. It's a grid. There's listings, you know, the listings as well. Sedentary restrictions. I was a hairdresser. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, which were they? I recall, of course. Yeah, that's just the lower levels being the lower levels. Keep at it. I have much confidence in your case, and I don't even know it. So, but just from the things you've described, if you're well treating for them, like a hypochondriac, even though it's not hypochondria, just be very like, my body is my temple, and this is my priority job right now is getting treatment for everything. I think you have a very strong chance of prevailing. Your job was not sedentary, and that's key. And you have to prove that you can't do medium work. So even if you could do light work, but can't do your other job, but it sounds like, doing light work on your feet all day long is, the shoulder isn't going to stop you from being on your feet all day long, but it'll stop you from this job, hairdresser. So just appeal. It's not unexpected what happened that you got denied. I think it was initially, you said, right? Virginia Gomez, is it rare for a lawyer assistant not to speak up at an ALJ hearing? Is it a lawyer or an assistant? It depends what you expect them to speak up about. They're not testifying. They're not witnesses, so they can't do that. They're just not allowed. If there were questions they should have asked you because the judge didn't, and it would be helpful to bring it out, and the judge just didn't ask it. And that's their opportunity to direct examine you. Of course, they should have done that. I don't know. The only time I would ever shut my mouth is if the judge says I'm awarding, and they literally say it on the record. Otherwise, Stephanie Joy is off to the races. And cross-examining the vocational expert in a respectful way, throwing out questions there. Yeah. There's things to be said one way or the other, unless you've been handed the golden platter. But I think you said you lost, right? You got a denial. I mean, if you were just getting someone who doesn't know your case and they threw someone in at the hearing, and maybe that is the person who knows your case best, but they're just not really great practitioners. I don't know. I don't know who your chosen rep was. I'm the only one that does hearings here, so I can't really speak to those that don't do it that way. Magic 666. I've had a CE in mid-July of this year. After your CE, how long does it take for them to give you an initial decision? Yeah, we see this question a lot, Magic. It can vary. It used to be, and somewhat still is, that shortly after a CE, within a few weeks, you get the decision. That can happen and often does, but sometimes there's an opportunity to get more records that could be pivotal, and they will hold it open to get those. And then it'll take longer. Other times, the adjudicator went on vacation, so they're not there to adjudicate the remainder of your case. Because remember, after the CE, if they have all the other medical records and function report, like if you were timely with that and all that business, then it goes usually to the medical expert and the SSA, who will then decide based on all that evidence now that they have the CE plus your treaters, what is your RFC? Hey, do you meet a listing? And if not, what is your RFC? And is a medical expert on vacation? Does he have a big backlog? They're usually pretty fast. So I don't think that's usually the hang up. So I would expect something in a number of weeks. And if it goes 2 months, you can call your adjudicator, or let's say it even goes a month. You could say, hey, I just wanted to see if you needed anything from me. If you have all of my medical records, I have a new update I wanted to give you. And they may say, we've already sent it off or not. So only one way to find out. And using honey and not vinegar, as always, right? Magic says, all information that was given to the DDS office was from an orthopedic doctor certified, but I still had to do a CE. So the only problem you have is an orthopedic one? Like no other doctors? You don't have a primary care? You don't have anything else, Magic? If you only have one doctor, period, and that's an orthopedist, which is a specialist, but it makes me wonder if your specialist was not very articulate. And maybe when you go in the orthopedist office, you're in a good mood, or you put on the strong front, and you say everything's fine. So now all these records say, customer has no complaints. Patient has no complaints. Feels good. Went on vacation. Played softball last week. If they can't find you disabled through your own medical records, that's when they ask a CE to take a look. I do think sometimes, and this is just a gut feeling, so there's nothing to research about this. Sometimes I do think that when they really feel strongly someone is disabled, but it's not listing, which is more concrete, right? Like more objective. I do think sometimes they'll throw up a CE to solidify what the adjudicator wants to do, to get that little extra so that they don't get a return, federal quality review. So if their own CE confirms what they think, then it makes your case stronger. And then they, I'm sure they don't like getting federal quality reviews, and gosh forbid FQR overturns them. And now they have to deny you. So that might be the minority of cases like that, but I've gotten the sense of that because I've had really strong cases, medical records wise. Not enough of them. Normally you have to really work hard to get that kind of stuff, but sometimes it is better than other times. And then, or we've gotten it there, and they still send it to a CE, and I'm like, do they really need a CE on this? This person's 61, and gosh, we've got so much stuff. And I think it's just to protect a win. In which case, God bless them. I think that's great. Christina, hey lady. Spine surgery journey is back in the house. Hello. During recon, every time I get a doctor's visit, do I turn it in or should I collect a bunch and then turn it in? That's a really good question. You don't know when they're going to make a decision on your recon. So, what you can do is, well, you have an attorney. So, yeah, I'd give it to your attorney and let him do this. You don't want to have two people calling the adjudicator. But your attorney can go in and see which of those doctor visits the SSA has already gotten. You don't want to send in duplicates. It's stupid, number one. And you just heard from above, if you were here earlier, that one guy's judge was really annoyed that there were so many duplicates. So you have to have an eyeball on what's going on. You have to always be checking the file. And you couldn't do that if you didn't have a representative, but you do, I think, I recall from the other week. So I would make sure they're there. And if they're not, say, I can shoot them up to you. But you don't want to have you and your teammate, the representative, both talking to the DDS. I think things will get really screwed up, and it'll probably do more damage than good. Desi says, you're correct that if he had denied me at step 3, he wouldn't have needed the grids. Well, they don't deny you at step 3. They determine your RFC at step 3, and then they go to step 4. And if they deny you at step 4, which means a finding that you could do your past work, if that's what you're saying. But because he assigned me an RFC and considered vocational evidence, no, he was already in step 5 territory. No, that's false. RFC is at step 3. And if the RFC, let's say, did you say you were 55 plus? If your RFC said you could do medium level work, the grids do not apply to you. There is no win that you can have under the grids. You would have to win a different way if you could. Yes, I can lift medium work, but I'm still disabled because of this other thing. And all these jobs are carved out because of this other thing. So remember, step 3 is listing. If not, get an RFC. At step 4, now that they have the RFC, does that RFC allow him to do his prior work? That's step 4. If he can do his prior work, you get denied at step 4. No need to go into step 5. If your RFC says can't do his prior work, then the question is, can he do, and let's say you're at medium where the grids don't apply, you're still going to do step 4, can't do his prior job. Well, can he do any other job of the 12,000 jobs in the national or regional economy? And that's step 5. So that's what you have to look at, okay? Because if your RFC, you got to look and find your RFC in your decision. If your RFC is above, if you are 55 or above, to meet prong 1 of the grids to have it apply would be can't do more than light work. Even if you could do light work or medium, light work or sedentary work, you can still win under the grid. Just can't do medium work. So you have to find out what he said about your RFC in that one paragraph that you can find. It's bolded and it says he's limited to, in step 5 territory, more from Desi. And there the grid rule should have applied. No. As I said before, if the grids won't apply if your RFC at step 3 doesn't even draw in the grids. Do you know what I'm saying? If all the, if you are not restricted to light or less, with the finding that the judge made in that decision, there would be no grid application. It doesn't matter the other things. You can't apply the grids. You could still potentially win, but not based on grids. Okay? That's one of the clearest appeal arguments you have. The ALJ failed to properly apply the grids once you move beyond step 3. I'm going to disagree with you. Only having seen ALJ denials and awards for over 20 years. They might have touched on something that said medical vocational rules say, and so don't look for the word grid, look for the term. They're not going to use the word grid in the decision. That's a slang word. Medical vocational rules, he could say where he disregarded them. And that's pretty much in every, it'll say medical vocational rules, so-and-so. And this would be in your DDEs, I think, too, usually. Points to not disabled. Just look for that language. It'll be in one of those later, really towards the end paragraphs. Okay. And let's say for some reason he forgot that paragraph, Tessie. Imagine if you're found to be able to do, medium work. That would be a harmless error because you're still not disabled. So it would, you know what I mean? Like the AC isn't going to necessarily overturn on a technicality that provides no recourse for a win, like a innocuous typo type of thing. Now, if he did find that you were stuck at light and he did find you couldn't do prior work, and he did find that there's that. So if he found that you're over 55 and therefore, and that you were reduced to light or sedentary work, and he did find that you could not do your prior job because the vocational expert, when he gave the RFC of that, said, no, that person can't do the prior job. That's going to be dependent on the vocational expert. And he did say, and he went into transferable skills, no transferable skills, and he still denied you, that would be a misapplication of the rules. And there you have a highly appealable issue. And that would be one that would probably get you a complete reversal, not even a remand, because his own facts, without having to make him do any discretionary, he doesn't have to have a new hearing. He already found the facts and they were in your favor, and then he ruled against you, even though this law says. So, check for that. Because that would be, I'm thinking, a good case for an actual reversal. And those are only like 1% of AC cases. A lot less than remands. Not that remands are hefty, but they're way more than reversals. Okay. And there the grid, Desi's going on, and there the grid rules should have applied. That's one of the clear, I think we're just repeating. That was like a duplicate. Okay. Kitty's whack when I froze. Okay. So, and Beth confirmed that there was no hearing when I froze either. Okay. So when I saw this my screen that was all black, it also meant you couldn't hear me. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sticking it out, kids. I God, it was short. I'm going to have to inquire of these people. Couldn't hear during the freeze. Lalulu confirms. Okay. I'm just scrolling down, guys, to get to the next. Beth is talking about just with Epic as an Epic certified resolute and clarity person. Unfortunately, that's a client setup issue. When I worked with a client on Epic implementation, we always advised heavily against that. Against which thing? Are you talking to me? I will say, not a single Epic, and I love it when my people have Epic in my chart, because it is the best one out there that I've seen for our purposes, for getting records. But I've never seen the option of, you just want to have all your progress notes, from Dr. Jones. You can pick Dr. Jones, but you can't print it that way when we go to get the records, unless you do each one individually. And if there's 75 visits, do I want to sit there and, no, we don't want to do that. So I would like it if they had a little bit better options. Randy, do you use AI? If so, how? AI, yeah, like in a medical record, they're OCR'd. What is that called? Optical something resolution. Like probably like you guys do too. You plug in a word. I'll plug in Antalgic Gate. We've been doing this for 20 years. Well, maybe not 20, maybe 15. And all the instances in your records where someone says that you have an Antalgic Gate pop up. Now, I would like something a little bit more robust than that. What about other ways of saying Antalgic Gate? Limp, but there's unsteady gait. Like it would be nice not to have to put in 50 versions, 50 synonyms manually to find out all the discussion of a wobbly way of walking. The word gait, walk, ambulate. I mean, the combinations are endless, and more robust AI software program that would recognize all the ways of saying that would be helpful. There are outfits out there. I don't know how well they work. I looked at one and it didn't meet what I thought was enough to replace human eyes on looking up certain stuff. So just do the best you can. So it's kind of like a very monotonous, it's very hard to get somebody who can do it and stick with it. So it's usually me. I think, Randy, AI is, we're not going to get into the dangers of it on the international front or any other way, except I think it can be very useful as a kind of like a partner with humans to double check things. I think it would be good. I just don't have it yet. I'm hoping to see a good creation. We'll see. Okay. Hey, H. Good afternoon from Arizona. Hey, Arizona, H. Kitty said, you said to check a couple weeks ago. I'm waiting to hear back about it. So you have not heard whether you lost your CDR. Yeah. I meant, well, one thing I think I might have mentioned, if I didn't, I'll mention it now. If you're in a CDR and you're waiting for the result, and when you get it, Kitty, if you want to share it back, you can email me or, to say we were talking about this. Do they tell you in your portal, in your SSA online account, the day that it happens? Because I know you guys get alerts when things change, I think, or that's very easy to look up instead of having to try to sit on hold with your local office. That would be great. Then you don't have to wait for that slow mail that might get there on day 11 when you had to have your thing back in on day 10. You know what I mean? So hopefully it does. They do give that determination in your portal promptly. And then if you're checking it, or if you get those texts whenever something's changed, that would be ideal. I'm trying. I've been making suggestions to SSA about, when you put anything in any claimant's file who has a representative who is registered with the electronic file process you have with the whole SSA, they text us passcodes to get into the electronic files every time we want to get in. We get a one-time password to our cell phones. If they can do that, why can't they send a text to us that says alert for, and the last four of the social? No name, nothing, just the last four of the social. We can figure it out, and we can get in there and see what changes made in the client's case. That would be. Can you guys be quiet? No, they say I can't. I must guard the house. Hold on a second. I'm just going to close my door so I can figure out how to. I don't even know how to do it. Right? The dogs. All right. Hi, Randy. There might be some humming in the background. Can you hear it? Oh, there are humans walking in the house. That's why the dogs are barking. And I have my headphones on, and they have little speakies here. So why can you hear so much in the background, Randy? I'm hoping that's not the case. I don't want to have any, like, would that be like a copyright infringement? I would hope not. It's so low back there. It's not even in this room. Okay. Hi, Kitty's still talking about the notice if you lose your CDR, so you can know whether you have to. Hold on one second. Excuse me, can you close my door? Even though I'll roast in here. So Kitty says, if I don't get that within 10 days, I'm screwed, even if I can't physically pick up the mail. You might want to get someone who picks up the mail for you. I'm concerned. I mean, you have to get your mail for other things, right, Kitty? So you have to kind of treat this as a priority. If anybody knows about CDR results, and if they, particularly if they're denied, if they put it in your portal, because I would like that for you, Kitty, because then that problem would be solved. You have your cell phone or whatever you use with them. Yeah, Kitty, I know it's going to be very hugely anxiety. And I feel for you. I wish I knew if it showed up in claimant's online account access like other things do. You know, it really should. I would think it would, because they tell people when there's been a decision and they move to a different, a decision was made and now we're on non-met. Like, they send those things. So why wouldn't they do it for CDRs? Fingers crossed that they do. Do you get texts about things like that in your file, Kitty? So that you know to go on, even if it's with your phone, to go check? That would be a start. You can call the adjudicator, right? Because you have an adjudicator on CDR, unless they haven't even done that stuff. Have you gotten requests for things? Like, I don't know what kind of CDR you have. I know it's got to be really stressful. I mean, however you get your regular mail, I mean, you have to get regular mail. So you have a way, right? Do you go get it yourself? Are you more able than you think? Or do you have someone bring it to you? You know, maybe right now you want to, if you can, give someone a couple bucks to bring you your mail every day. I know that's not easy if money's tight. Hi, Jesse says, how should I prepare for a hearing? I haven't received any advice from my attorney. Well, usually close in time to the hearing is when he's going to hopefully have a hearing prep with you. And usually they're anywhere from 1 to 3 hours for us. But I don't know how he practices that, Jesse. But I do have, I think, a video or two on what to expect at your hearing. So you can go watch those. I mean, it's not going to be particular to you per se, obviously, but how things generally go. I even have one trial prep, my end of the conversation with the one from this year, so that people could maybe get a glimpse of what we do anyway in terms of prepping for hearing. And every case will be different, of course, because the questions I ask with regard to functioning activities are going to vary per person. But those videos will tell you what I think you should maybe look at to review, like such as your function report. See if that's all the same. If it's changed, you're going to want to maybe, if things have gotten worse, you're going to want to maybe let him know about that. Now, of course, your attorney should be asking you those questions and this has gotten worse since your function report, right? Tell the judge how it's gotten worse, that kind of thing. Hang in there, Jesse. You have a hearing coming up, so that's good news. The judges have a lot more discretion, I feel, than the lower levels. Gemini is in the house. Hi, Gemini. Completed both CE exams, physical and mental. Filed in October 2024. Was just told of the CE August 2025. And this is the initial, not recon. Shouldn't take this long. I know. So hopefully after the CE, this is the last leg. Fingers crossed for you. Yeah, well, you know, the last few years, it's been that long. Exactly what you've been saying. Obviously, it's getting a little faster now. More proactive steps have been taken, but it's still not as fast as we want to see it. It's just, what did I say, 25% faster at this point as of July, I think. I know I have some more reporting to do on that. What did they reported? Do they call it milestones? I forget. I did one video and I meant to do the rest of them because it was a whole great report with charts for each of various, you know, really good to know progress reports, I guess, on the numbers. But I just haven't had time to do that. Hopefully I will now. But this fall, this winter, yeah, I've kind of a hearing slew coming up, but at least all the traveling and the hospital visits are over. So to me, it's just work, which is, to me, is a stress reliever, believe it or not. Work is a stress reliever for me. You know, it's stressful. It's a different kind of stress. Oh, that's Deb talking to Chess. Tara says, regarding previous question of rheumatologist versus radiologist on X-ray, I haven't fully submitted my initial application. Oh, so not sure if I should even bring it. Yeah, I think it's a little premature. They're going to have all your records. I thought it was maybe where you were submitting a new one and saying, see, this contradicts that one. And that's not going to be a make or break report per se. Like the radiologist says nothing, and then the rheumatologist says something else. I mean, you could mention it if you want. Just say, but you know, I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of minutia at this point to put in. There's got to be a lot more stuff in your file that's going to kind of probably dwarf that anyway. Maybe. Okay, so I would think you don't even have to, Tara. And then the second question she had is, I have significant pain in my left hand and I have a congenital amputation of my right hand. Goodness, Tara. The rheumatologists have official diagnosis of OA based on X-ray and my symptoms. Okay. Yeah, whatever the official way is that is acceptable under the medical rules is generally acceptable to SSA. I don't doubt you don't have osteoarthritis. If you have significant pain in your left hand, I do hope you're treating for that in some way, shape, or form, following with it kind of aggressively. If not curable, which I presume it's not, potentially, following it provides the evidence that it's as bad as you say. And that's kind of what you want. You want that medical evidence to be working in tandem with your claimed pain, and describe how it limits you'll do this in your function report down the road. Describe how it limits use of your left hand. Like, can't use my left hand for XYZ, and you don't have a right hand. So, you know, the proof that you have a significantly limited left hand, if you can get that together, can be very strong, because it might really eliminate a lot of jobs, because you're not going to be able to do, obviously, bilateral manual dexterity requiring jobs. That's a lot of jobs, particularly if we're at the sedentary level and maybe the light level. Well, all the levels really, but including sedentary. And now you're saying you don't even have full use of one hand. That's getting pretty significant in terms of hand use. Not all jobs require hand use. However, it carves out a heck of a lot of them. And then you probably have, and then if the osteoarthritis, if you have problems with your back, that can then reduce the amount of walking you can do. Obviously, a lot's going to depend on your vocational profile, your prior relevant work, and your age in particular. I don't really see too much interference with education, because most of our educations are several years ago. Oh, Deb, I couldn't agree with you more. Deb says, please consider liking and sharing this invaluable free weekly information provided. Many watching and not very many likes. Hey, yeah, click the like button, people. Dipti Tinia, long time no see. Nice to see you. Says, hello, Stephanie. In my denial, the ALJ mentioned none of my impairments and warranted surgery. The ALJ mentioned none of my impairments warranted surgery until after DLI. But my knee surgeon said I was too young for surgery and I hadn't found a back surgeon yet. Yeah, that's a problem when we delay getting our high-end experts until too late. It's another reason why I'm a super nag hag with my people too. Get on it, get on it, get on it. And they don't like it. Some of them appreciate it, but they don't like it. And then later, if they win, then they really appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, that DLI is deadly. You have to. It's deadly to a case. I don't know your situation, Rip. What is your age, and when was your? So now you have a ALJ decision that's post DLI. So you had to appeal that to the appeals council. You don't really have a choice, right? Or you're never going to get SSD unless you go back to work for another X many years or whatever. So appeals council appeal, and I would start lining up at least who you're going to call if you get denied on appeals council, who might want to look, who will be willing to look at your case for a federal district court appeal, because you don't have the ability to refile again because of that DLI. You do have the opportunity to file for SSI if you're poor. That means no spouse making money and all that, and no savings. But that's a tough place to be, Rip, when your DLI's in the past. I nag about that too. I'm always like, can't you just do like a little bit of something? Make $8,000 a year working very part-time. That's where a lot of the gigger work comes in for people. People that can't keep a set schedule because it depends on their paying days, but they can do a little DoorDash or something. And I'm not trying to toot the gigger corporation's gig, but it has saved a lot of people from a expired DLI. So I push it. There's other ways to do it. There could be house sitting, dog sitting. It's very sedentary, flexible, not really substantial work, but you're getting paid to pay. Keep it under SGA, but build those credits. If you're potentially going to be losing your DLI and you haven't won yet, even if you're in the middle of a case and you still have a DLI, but it's going to expire in 6 months, you can get another. You still got 4 months of 2025 in which to pull out fully all 4 credits. Of course, 4 credits would probably put you out of SGA at this point because you're starting so late in the year. But even if you just get 2 credits, $1,000 a month, get yourself 2 credits. 2 credits can keep someone perpetually on, by the way. It's just that if you need to if you're out of DLI status and you need to build it back, it'll go faster if you get 4 credits, which is a little under $8,000 a year at this point. Retired grip. Okay, that's an interesting screening. SSDI. When can I start TWP? It can start before you even win your case. Not that you want it to. And after reporting my pay stubs on the SSA website, do I have to notify when I stop the 9 months of work? Also, is the month worked or month paid count as TWP? That's a loaded question right there. All right, so the trial work period is going to automatically kick in, whether they know it or not. In retro, they will figure it out. But you do want to report if you go to work. So I don't know whether you're working. So this is a little too helter-skelter for me to be able to kind of quantify this answer, retired. But your TWP will be an automatic month if you go over the TWP amount. As you know, that's $1,100 and something right now. So it's well under SGA. The reporting of the pay stubs on the SSA website will help make sure that gets reported in good time. If you never go over SGA ever anyway, it doesn't really matter when you expire your TWP, because you're going to not have overpayments each month you go over SGA, because you're not going to be going over SGA. The only thing you lose by popping out of your TWP retired after those 9 months, that could be ad hoc or sequential, it doesn't matter, is that you will no longer have the protection of them not being able to look at your work when they decide whether you're still disabled, if they're looking at it. And when you're working, they are going to look at it. So when you're in your TWP, they can't consider the work you're doing to determine if you're no longer medically disabled due to your activity of doing that work. So there is a protection that staying within that TWP and never doing those 9 months in a 5-year period can get you. If you're not concerned about that, because you know your medical evidence is going to be very, very strong and that it's clearly going to show not improvement, then it's not such a big deal. And that's for most people, I think. So no, you don't have to notify them when you stop the 9 months of work, except they do want you to tell them. Because it says whenever you stop or start or change up work, notify us. That was in your paperwork that they sent you when you either applied or prevailed. But I would, it's always safer to tell them things than to not. Even if they don't do anything with it, at least you have proof that you told them in case it becomes relevant later. And then the last question, the month worked or the month paid count as TWP? That really depends, because if you're self-employed versus an employee, it really depends. I don't want to give a solid answer on that because I feel like there are variables. So they're going to first see when you're paid. That's going to be the first trigger. If someone got paid for 3 paychecks and 10 of the days are in the prior month, but they didn't get paid until the beginning of the next month, you're going to want to know that information, because you also have SGA to worry about. Although I know yours is only about TWP at this point. Thank you, Kitty. Yes, Kitty says to like the video, guys. The more we support the channel, the more she can help us and others. And that is true, because this is how we do our 1% people. Those are they're not 1% of our case, so it's a lot more than that. But it's people that maybe have the 1% chance of prevailing. And then if they get proper workup and get a representative, that pops them way up to something maybe more like 60, which is still crappy, but it beats 1%. I mean, it wouldn't be our rate with our regular folks. But we take those despite the high risk of loss, because the contributions that are here, the memberships, all that stuff from YouTube, that's what that's all about. So we're able to take more. We had been a bit of at a standstill, and now we've upped it by another couple people. And it's just really helpful, because it's all going to be, it's kind of like, I don't want to say slush fund, but you have to pay people. And then we have to take away from, we have a certain set of top, the top barrier of no more cases, period. And the more we take of those, the less we can take of something else. So the more of those that can be supported without pure unpaid help, or the additional time unpaid, makes it more people can be brought on, and more help too, because that's where that stuff goes. Okay. Neurologist is a psychiatrist also. That's always helpful. Is he practicing psych neuro, or does he also do bad backs? Probably not both, because there are neurologists that do backs. There are neurologists that do migraines. There are neurologists that do psychiatry. And I always say, for any of those that we just talked about, if it's a neuropsych problem, I definitely think, like for a migraine, PCP versus a migraine specializing neurologist, go with the latter. Do your best to get it. It's going to be stronger evidence, generally speaking. Randy says, would it be beneficial to ask for lifting limitations from my doctor even though I no longer work? What if he gives you the wrong lifting limitation? Do you know what the lifting limitation should be for your vocational profile on what you're trying to prove? I'm coming from a 36-year medium to heavy work background. I may attempt light part-time job. Well, remember, if you succeed at it, or if you're doing that over SGA, they won't take your case. They can't. I mean, you fail at step one. So if you're doing it under SGA, you can still file. Right, Randy? So Randy, I think last we spoke, you were still working, right? So you decided to stop. That's good. That's good. So yeah, I mean, asking for a doctor, if you know what you're asking for, I don't see the problem in it. Although you don't want him to say, Randy has asked me for a lifting limitation. You know what I'm saying? It would be best if he doesn't put it that way. Don't say I asked, doc, but can you include a lifting limitation in that? He might do it, right? If you have a good relationship with him. RD says, oh, and you did say grid rule, RD. My eyes were seeing the fourth word later, which was listing. We love referrals, RD. Absolutely. And thank you. I appreciate it. Randy says, how far back do you and SSA want medical records? I have been going to pain management for at least 12 years and have received at least close to 100 back injections, ablations. SSA probably won't want them. They'll probably want them. I've seen some say, this is usually a DDS thing, 1 year. Some have said 2. So they can, I guess, have a little bit of discretion there. If I were you, it wouldn't hurt to get, if you're getting Dr. Jones records and you're still seeing Dr. Jones, the pain management guy, get all his records and send them in. Because if they don't do it, you want that perspective. It might not be for that adjudicator who might not be able to consider it, but you're lining it up for a judge. Also, whatever we do today is to cover path A, B, C, D, and E if any get chopped off. You have to always plan for the worst while hoping for the best. Rip says, my DLI was 12/31/23. I had back surgery in 25. I was identified as a surgical candidate in 24. That's still after your DLI. It's close in time to your DLI. Like I would probably make the argument, listen, they talked about him being a surgeon in February 2024, but clearly that severity didn't arise in February 2024. Look at all those complaints back into 2023. It's hard though, Rep. I've got a couple remote DLI cases and they're hard. I mean, they're so hard. And it's heartbreaking too, because you have to be the person with the tough word on what that means. And I hate I don't know, the bad feelings inside that it creates in a claimant I can't be the one to pretend it's not an issue. When I finally seen the specialist, that's important, but didn't matter to ALJ, unfortunately, because he couldn't. That specialist could not speak to your insured period. It's like having your car accident after your car insurance expired. Rip, is there any way you can, I mean, you haven't worked in a long time if your DLI is 2023, right? Is there anything you could, I don't know how old you are. If you're older, it may not matter. But if you're not that old, if let's say you're 50, can you do something to earn those credits back? You might be able to do it in less than 5 years because you've only been 2 years out. If you can, do something to earn that, $8,000 a year that you pay taxes on. Self-employed, gigger work, your own work, hang a shingle to house it, whatever it is, just make sure you got proof of payment, put it in your bank and document it in a ledger. So if they, need to know how much was your self-employment, because they scrutinize that a lot more, you'll have your proofs. I know that's not really possible for everybody, but it's, I just hate to see the remote DLIs. It hurts. It hurts my heart there, Rip. So, Desi, if he included no RFC, he missed the whole paragraph in your decision, and you will have a clear remand. Now you're okay. So there was no RFC, and you're saying the judge said that there was no RFC. So the judge is saying you have 0 residual functional capacity. That I've never seen that, but that would mean that you're disabled. So if he said you have 0 residual functional capacity, then you're definitely going to win on appeal, at least a remand. That sounds like he fell into a coma in the middle of his decision. RD says, I'm hoping to see the denial letter soon. I can share next week. Okay. So you haven't gotten the denial letter yet, RD, huh? I don't know what you're saying, Desi, when you say there is no RFC on file. The decision is part of the file. So he doesn't have to pull it from your doctor. If your doctor doesn't talk, no RFC. So for instance, let's say everything's within normal limits with all the medical records. And I'm just being hypothetical here. That's not no RFC. That means there's no loss. So you can do everything constantly. Because remember, there's constant, there's frequent is less than constant. So everything anything when we are as good as we were when we were 20, everything can be constant. So there's nothing less than constant, if that's what you're saying. And that means your medical records really showed not even probably any severe impairments. You gotta read that thing. What does your lawyer say? I mean, that's unusual. That's weird. Let's see. Unless what you're saying is they never sent it to a medical expert for their opinion on RFC at initial and recon and just denied you on initial and recon. That would be weird too. That'd be all really weird. Sounds like an appeal. Okay. KR. Hi, KR. That's a pretty picture you have. Good day. What can I do about medical professionals not being truthful in my records? Oh my gosh, the bane of everybody's existence, isn't it? Just went to ER for DVT check, kind and helpful. However, they stated all these things done that were not done. Oh, well, then you have a different issue that's not really related to what we're talking about. But if they're saying certain things were done that they can charge for, and I don't know if you have Medicaid or some other insurance, are they falsifying records to get payments? I don't know. You're saying they say they did things that are not done. They only say things like that because they need to bill insurance and they have to tell them what they did. So if they're saying things that they didn't do, this wouldn't be the first time. There's many a prosecution on this. I don't know, but I assume they say it was done and something was normal. So that also just hurts it. It would be, it's bad if they rip off any kind of insurance company or Medicaid, God forbid, or Medicare, God forbid. But if they say, took an x-ray, don't have the result, showed severe, then you're like, oh, good. Maybe I won't argue it. But I'm assuming it says they did this and everything was super duper. He or she can go home, maybe you have to have a talk with the hospital. But the ER isn't going to make or break your case anyway. So I would focus on your treating durational long-term specialist appointments and your primary care visits. And those are the ones that if there is I wouldn't fight a battle just on principle, unfortunately, because it's going to take up every second of your day and your mentality. but if there's something blatantly wrong that will hurt your case, then it's sometimes something to bring up to say, y'all said I didn't have a missing left leg, but that was amputated in 1982. The things that can really make or break. Kitty says she's going to keep an eye out on her online account and let us know if it pops up in the portal, meaning the results of her CDR. So she'll know real quick if she was ceased or not ceased. And then she knows she has to bang out that letter, fax it, Kitty. And I'd probably overnight it just because of that super short time period. If it was a 30-day time period, I would say, maybe priority mail with the tracking, of course, as well as the fax, always with the fax. But they don't give you 30 days. So unfortunately, we have to spend money for a little bit of security on that. Kitty. Kitty picks up the mail once or twice a month. Well, maybe you got to buck it up a little bit more. Or like you said, maybe it'll pop up in there. I wish someone here knew, but everybody's probably in pending cases. So it isn't really nobody knows. And my colleagues don't know because they don't really talk to people like I do. I'm always trying to find out from you guys what's going on. FLNC girl. Is that Florida, North Carolina? Just wondering. Hi, Stephanie. Do you know how much you can earn on a job if on SSD? Well, I can tell you what SGA is, and that is $1,620 gross per month. So that is the financial no amount. You want to stay under that. Many of us recommend not flirting with that line because it's very easy to tip over if you accidentally work an extra hour, extra shift, or get a tips on a job. So you don't really want to do that. Some people also think that there's an optic if you're very close to the SGA line that you are doing so on purpose and you could certainly work more. I don't know if I buy that because it's supposed to be about what you do and not necessarily that you could push it another hour. But if you want to be safe, I always say, just maybe stay at like 1,300 or something as your top. And do not forget that the kind of work you do is also relevant, unless you're in your trial work period. If you're not in your trial work period anymore, then they can look at the activities you're doing. So if you're doing some kind of job that you really seems inconsistent with what you said was stopping you from working before, those medical impairments or the symptoms, that might not look good. And that might trigger wondering if you've improved. And then you get a full-blown CDR, So I would be careful about the kind of job you pick. With my folks, I always have them talk to me first, and we go over what duties are you thinking you're going to do, even if you're going to be under SGA, which you of course have to be. So, and just giving the the SSA has no problem with you working. They want to see people have quality lives while on SDI, and they recognize, as they do with retirement, that it was never meant to cover everything, which is an important backup point as to why they are okay with people working, and they have no problem with it. But at the same token, it's not going to be for non-disabled people who have recovered, and that's just what you, as a responsible recipient, will always want to make sure you have your proofs, reasonably that you haven't. And one of the things that can be looked at is, well, I always give this same old boring example. If you have a bad back and you decide to do part-time work at a hay farm, baling hay and throwing it up into the loft, and I say that because we used to live next to a barn that did that. That is not really going to be suggestive of a continuing back problem, because a person with a back problem wouldn't pick that job. So you see what I'm saying? If you have severe agoraphobia and you decide to do a public speaking job, might not be the job that shows that you've not improved. Those are obvious examples. Okay. Katie says, I appreciate the honest answer, even though it sucks to hear. I'll try to figure something out. Thank you so much for your insight. You are a blessing. Thank you. You are a blessing too. I appreciate it. KR. I'm so upset about it. It's partially why I had to wait so long as well for my case, not noting things correctly. Yeah. If that's the ER visit, right, KR? Yeah. ERs are like the Fast and the Furious. They don't really check much, right? But I guess pick your battles. I know it's upsetting. All right. Where am I at? Desi says, my past jobs classified at the light exertional level, yet the ALJ see, he did give you a medium RFC. Did I call that or what, Desi? This made it easier to deny your claim. Yes, it did. Evidence gap. The ALJ admitted there was no complete function report on file. Okay, so that's where you testify as to your functioning at the hearing. That didn't hurt you that there was no function report on file. That actually gave him less fodder to pull from that to support the denial. So a lot of times when they're going to deny, they use the fact that a function report says something that the person didn't realize how it was going to sound and how it could be twisted. So that itself is not a big deal, because a function report is just the written version of your testimony at hearing of those activities that are the hearing's all about and the symptoms. So that itself, that the initial and recon people dropped the ball. We've always said the function report isn't going to win your case ever. So it can only really hurt it. And if a judge is inclined to award on the medical evidence, he will use the positive things in a function report to add to the crumbs of that, to show that the function report is not inconsistent with disability, right? Yeah, see, he put you at RFC. I think when you were saying there was no RFC, I think maybe, were you meaning there was no function report, which is not an RFC at all in the file? Yeah, that's not an RFC. The RFC is if you had you don't have your DDE in your, maybe you do. If you have a copy of your file, look for the DDE on initial and recon, and they will say what the medical doctor who designed your RFC at the initial and recon levels, which your ALJ does not have to buy. He can decide it's something different. He obviously decided it was a medium RFC, so that's probably what they said too. That means you can lift over 20 pounds. So you'd have to have really strong evidence that you can't lift over 20 pounds, or to do medium work, you also have to do it on your feet. So prove that you can't do the amount of footwork you have to do for a light job, which is 6 out of 8 hours. So it's where those exertional, people think the grids just apply because of my age, and no, you have to have this. It's 3 prongs. Everyone's got 3 prongs on the grids to prove each of the 3. I hope you have a DLI in the future, Desi, because you can do this again, and maybe, get some guidance on how to cure those weaknesses, evidentiary weaknesses. Because you got to remember too, Desi, no function report on file. Do you know how many times people don't submit their function report? I think a lot of pro se's, they wait too long. They don't get it on time, or they don't get it on at all. You don't win your case because you failed to submit a function report. I'm guessing you were not. I'm guessing your adjudicator did not ask for one, which was inappropriate. But that doesn't affect the ALJ, because the initial and recon people don't have you in front of them for you to be able to tell these things. The ALJ had you at hearing, and that was your opportunity to speak to your symptoms and limitations. He probably said somewhere in there that the allegations, the statements about severity and symptoms and severity of pain and all that you said, he might have said in there, they could be expected to result from the impairments that I have found, the severe impairments. However, they are not entirely consistent with the medical evidence of record. That is almost a verbatim quote. in denials. They have to find that what you say is inconsistent with the medical file, because if it was consistent with the medical file, that means the medical file is consistent with the severity that you allege, which is that I can't work, and you'd almost have to win. So it's like a very canned, automatic in every denial. And it used to say, and they changed this verbiage a couple of years ago because it was offensive. It all means the same thing now. It's just a rose by any other name. And they used to say it was not credible. And I guess the politically correct said, you can't say they're not credible. That's suggesting they're lying. Okay, so now we just say what they're saying is inconsistent with the medical evidence of record, which is a kinder way, but it's still saying that we don't believe what you say. But from a practical point of view, remember that they always have to go with the medical evidence. The medical evidence has to prove that you're disabled. That has to be the foundation. So they have to have that foundation first of X, Y, or Z, and then your stuff can help put a little frosting on that. Or carve it away. If you say something that you're able to do much better than what your medical evidence says, I think your medical evidence is going to have a problem. KR, who's been having problems with getting accuracy in her medical records. We've been talking about this probably every week. We'll touch on it at some point in time. So she continues to say, I immediately emailed my primary that they stated things done that were not kind. Oh, not kind or not done, and did the DVT test but not the other things. Okay, I'm not really sure. Your primary care can't change the ER. He doesn't own it. So you'd almost have to go to the ER people. There's got to be a customer service thing. There's probably a way to request changes to your records if they're inaccurate. It is pathetic, though. It is pathetic. And they need to have a better recourse for patients that will have some sting if it is at least not addressed. They have to acknowledge the request for corrections. Now, if they think that you are incorrect, they can say, we got the request for corrections. However, we stand by what we said. At least the dispute is known. You can't force someone to say something they don't believe, right? It's like they all mostly say they do full body checks and they do not. Oh, I know. It's pathetic, right? Yeah. Let's see. La Lulu says, we are at 2 hours, guys, by the way. We'll try to blow through these. Highly recommend, I should probably drink water, signing up for USPS informed delivery. We have that, La Lulu. I get grayscale images of the envelope front of all first-class mail automatically sent free to my email daily for several years now. Yes, great idea. That could be. Now, La Lulu, that's when it's about to hit your mailbox, correct? So it could be 5 days after mail. It could be 10 days after mail. It's when they finally get it close to your mailbox. Am I right on that? So it's better than nothing, but it's still not perfect. What could be perfect about it, though, and is this for Kitty? If you do that, I think if you could prove that you didn't get the cessation until, let's say it's day 12 or even day 9 or whatever, like it didn't even get to this point until super late. You might be able to use it as a just cause for them giving you the continuation of benefits, notwithstanding the fact that it's after the deadline. And the evidence that La Lulu is suggesting might be able to help with that, because your word that you got it on day 15 can be bolstered by this email that shows that even the email guy wasn't even delivering it in your area until so-and-so date. But Kitty doesn't go to her mailbox but for every few weeks. So I think it's Kitty, right? So that's a problem. Kitty, you're going to have to I wish I knew if you'd be getting it in your texts and stuff. It would just save so much. And in your SSA account. Lulu also says, you'll know when to check your mail and have an image record to report if any mail goes missing or is misdelivered, or is the date that it's being delivered, which can be key, right? What I was just talking about. If you don't want email, you can log into USPS app or check mail online. Ooh, you are a treasure trove of good tips there. That's awesome, guys. I would think everyone should do that. Hey, Shub is in the house. Hello, Mrs. Joy. That's my mother, Shub. Stop. Come on now. Hi back to you, Shub. Good to see you. Joy, at least you communicate to your claimant. Yeah, that's indeed I do. Probably ad nauseum. I have nothing unless I call and request a senior attorney or managing partner. I hurt all day, every day. Don't know how long I can go on. I'm sorry. Jesse, I think you probably have a really good case. You're waiting for hearing, right? They have every incentive to win for you because they're not going to get paid unless they do. And, you know, those managing partners, they have 3-car garages, and they really need that money. So they want to win. They have staff to pay. You could do this. Hang in there, girl. It's coming soon. Keep the faith. Laura says, hi, Laura. Hello from Portland, Oregon. I enjoy listening to your informative content. Well, I appreciate that. What is it that they say? Like, share, subscribe. Okay. I know I'm supposed to be saying that more often. That's what they tell me anyway. I'm like, too busy yapping. Okay, Virginia says, girl, you have a great memory. I was denied. Yeah, some things. And some things I'm like a sieve, Virginia. I'm 52 in California, was in a car wreck. I'm 52 in California. Was in a car wreck, ejected was in out of contact when I was 19. Okay, so this has been a long time problem. Got worse over the years. I've been going to the doctor since. Yeah. I forget if you were working for a lot of years. Since 1952, I've gotten worse over the years with fibroarthritis, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, ANA blood. So maybe a autoimmune or something, severe carpal tunnel inflammation, and more. The list goes on. Yeah, and you got denied. If you've been treating vociferously for all of those, is that the right word? If you have, and if you worked, where's your work at? They probably put you at light work. You're 52. Or they put you at sedentary, but they said that you had skills that could transfer, or you could still do your old job, or transfer those skills from your old job to a new job. Did I bang it out of the park? Thousands of ALJ decisions later. You're denied. Did you? It was recent, right, Virginia? So what are you doing? Where are you at? What's your DLI? Are you reapplying? Are you appealing to appeals council? Do you have an attorney to talk to about it? Do you need a new one? That kind of thing. Figure out what you got to kind of figure out what you're going to do. If you're going to appeal that appeals council, you got 60 days. If you have the opportunity to apply again, you think whether you're going to do one or the other. If you don't have an opportunity to apply again because your DLA is in the past, you have no choice but to go to the appeals council, right? Or if you never had, if it's not SSD, but it's only SSI, you could do one or the other. You can always reapply for SSI as long as you're very PO. And that is a big points factor with the SSI. You know how it is. It's really low. It's just because it's meant to be at the poverty level. Just keep people right off the poverty level because it is welfare. Desi, $2 donation. That's very, very sweet. Huh. How do you do that? I'm not even sure. There's buttons, right? That's really sweet. Thank you. It all goes to that little pot there. And I will do an announcement every time we take a new one. I should be doing that, but I just get off track. Virginia says, My hearing, okay. Oh, it was the end of 2024. I thought it was for non-medical. Oh, okay. Thinking I already won my medical. Then I got it now because I wasn't too sick that I could still work. I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, your evidence was bad. And, the 50 to 54 is not a slam dunk. Well, none of it is a slam dunk. But some people think as soon as they hit 50, I was denied all through. Now finally I'm going to win. Not so much. There's still the 3 prongs for 50 to 54 that we have to meet with strong medical evidence. Super strong. Regina says, I thought I was going to get represented by my lawyer, but I guess I got an assistant to represent me. But all I can say is that I wish I'd known you first because I know I should have won. Well, you're done with your hearing, so you have some options, right? I'm curious about your DLI, or is this an SSI case only? Oh, Justin Yu had his hearing last week. Now waiting. Yeah, that torturous waiting period, right? Hopefully it'll go fast one way or the other so you get your results. The wait can be the worst part. Fingers crossed for you, Justin. KR says, I'm going to say she, although that's not right. I don't really know. I'm disabled and it makes me look better than I am. Your medical records. Yeah, that's true of everybody that gets denied that's disabled. And that's all of our clients, right? When they get denied. Rip says the intraoperative findings are more clinically significant than the preoperative MRI suggested. Okay. There is a high likelihood that this has been a very long-standing and progressive spinal pathology that, as patient has reported. Yeah, believe it or not, the word that can hurt you is progressive. That means it was better before and is worse now. Meaning it was better before 2023, it wasn't the same. So that's not necessarily a helpful thing there. Yeah, KR has Medicare. Are you 65, KR? Now that I have Medicare, but for years they've been incorrect on my symptoms. You can tell them your symptoms by messaging them in the portal and sending in a letter by fax and to say, hey, I just want to have my symptoms that it's really bothering me in front of you for our next appointment on October 5th. And that technically should be a communication that stays in your file. And now they can't say you never reported those symptoms because there's the letter that KR sent, a year and a half ago before the so-and-so visit. And then you do that for every visit. If they are not being good, sometimes we have to do their job for them with sugar, with honey and not vinegar. Okay. So KR says, thank you. So focus on my specialists now. I'm upset. Don't be upset. You're at the beginning, right? There's a lot you can do. You've got a lot of time. Even if your case is pending, you do it now. Just start doing it. You got to kind of hit everything as it comes along, but you don't do it the same day. So you get time to calm down when you see a really bad report. But the ER visits, not that they're not evidence of something. They're just not going to show a 12-month disability because they're a snapshot. It's that durational, ongoing, repeated, consistency, reasonable frequency, diagnostic tests, conservative therapies, because you're trying to get some improvement in some of these conditions, even if they're not curable. And just going to slip this in here about physical therapies and such, guys, when we don't want to do them because we don't think they're going to work, and we're probably right, some of us, when we've done them before and our body just it's not going to help our condition. Sometimes it's better to just be medically compliant and do it anyway, because it is going to bring up evidence that you're not otherwise going to have of the continuing pain and the limitation because those physical therapists, a lot of them are so good at recording stuff. They just seem to be better recorders. Not all of them, but I'd say the vast majority, which I'd say it's the flip for other medical providers. So, I mean, their job is to know how your body felt after a therapy and how, were you in pain during the current session? Did you have limited range of motion? Was the therapies limited because of pain? Did they have to pull back on something that they couldn't do because of pain? So you can get 20 sessions of physical therapy. Getting 20 sessions with your specialist is going to take you 10 to 12 years probably or more. You know what I mean? So imagine having all that. Now, granted, a physical therapist is not your specialist MD, but they're usually referred by one, and ideally they are instead of just your PCP. You can get the orthopedist to refer you or whoever, your specialists are. When in doubt, go with specialists. I know it's sometimes higher copays. Okay. Incorrect on things checked. Yeah, I know you're upset with them, KR. Just keep a cool head, persevere, keep your chin up, and persevere in those treatments. It's a way you build evidence and maybe help your body. I mean, but I always say there's two prongs here in your life. You got the medical wanting to get better, and then you have the legal so you can win your benefits that you worked for. So sometimes if a certain activity or choice is not going to help the medical, maybe it helps the other prong. So don't forget about the legal prong. And that's where my nagging comes in on my job. Christina says, don't forget to press the like button. Yeah. Thanks, Christina. Okay. No, of course not. The poor record keeping is epidemic. All right. I'm skipping through the personal conversations in here, but everybody should read them because some people are giving out some people decent advice. And I will say, of course, always do your own due diligence. Whether it's me you're listening to or anybody else, always double check on things because you could have misheard, someone could have misspoke, including myself. And always feel free to ask for sure. La Lulu says, and this is about that mail situation we're talking about, 98% of the time, the USPS informed delivery image is of the mail arriving same day. I'm in rural area, though. I would say they even tell us, yeah, like this is coming today. It just it isn't there yet. Like I have to go get my mail, and it doesn't come to my house or my building here. So, yeah. I don't really pay attention to mine, but I'm not waiting on something important either. Although sometimes my family will be like, oh my God, Amazon's delivering through USPS, so we have to go down and check the locker. And then someone will drive down there. Okay. Jesse's praying for Justin's approval. Yeah. Fingers crossed, prayers for you, Justin, on that. And thank you for doing that, Jesse. Okay. Marla King says, should I call after being on step 3 for the whole 9 months? Thanks. You haven't spoken to your adjudicator? If you're unrepresented, I assume you're unrepresented, or you would have spoken to your representative about this. I think you can call and say, hey, that's assuming you haven't. I think the reason why it's taken 9 months is because you were waiting in line for an adjudicator. That's probably what happened. However, do you follow the online stuff that you have in your SSA account, Marla? Because I think they might tell you when you're assigned to somebody. I'm not sure. But you can always, if you have a letter from the adjudicator, like they ask for your function report or something, so you have a letter, you can call that. And I think everyone should be on top of the case, like monthly, and be like, hey, just checking in to see if you need anything from me. Do you have my latest medical records from Dr. Jones? I was there 2 weeks ago. Do you need to order those? Is there some way I could help? Do you want me to go in my portal, if you have a portal, and get his progress note? You know, definitely, if you're self-representing, you are your own lawyer. So you have to do all the things that the lawyer would do, okay? Or their staff. Christine is banging it out. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I agree. All right, so I'm passing through the private conversations, guys. I'm just scrolling down. Kitty says, this chat is so helpful. The people here are good people. They are. Everyone is so nice and helpful and supportive of everyone else going through the same process. And it's great when people come back and they've been awarded. But sometimes they come back because they've been denied. And, you know, you just try to give them some guidance and some support and so they can persevere to the next step, because life doesn't end just because the case ends, right? Oh, you're welcome, KR. Okay. Tony P. Hi, Tony P. You're late to the game, my friend. Hi, Stephanie. Quick question. Is SSDI taxable income? It can be. I have them taking 12%. My brother said he had never paid federal taxes, so I'm hearing, yes, I have to pay. So whether you are federally taxed on income overall, right, depends on how much taxable income you earn. There are different rules. Social Security has some protections about some of it never being taxed federally, never being part of the amount that's taxable. Taking 12% out is a safety. You'll get a refund if nothing else. So I think it's really good to do if you're not sure. If all you have is, if you're not married, you're the only one with the income, and you're bringing in, you know, your benefit is $24,000 a year, you're not going to have any of that taxed, because that's under I have a video on it, I think, about the calculation for combined, what your combined income is decides of all your taxable. I think it's AGI, or is it MAGI? I'm not sure. You'd have to look. I don't remember. But they call it combined income, and I think it might even be only half of your Social Security counts towards determining the combined income. And then if the combined income is over, it's like $25,000 for a single and $34,000 for a married couple, then you'll be taxed starting at only 50% of yours will be taxed. If someone has a high combined income, it rises up to almost 85% of their Social Security can be taxed at whatever their tax rate is. Because remember, your tax rate is going to depend on other income. So the tax rate that applies overall will apply to whatever smaller portion of Social Security is taxed at all. And oftentimes none is taxed. So like your brother's is not taxed because he doesn't have a high combined income. So I can't tell you whether yours is, but I will say that if you're doing the withholding of 12% through the SSA, you'll have a nice refund. And it's a way to save money and save up for something. So I kind of look at it that way. It's money you were forced not to spend by doing that. Just a silver lining part to that. So, but you'd have to do your taxes to find out. But a lot, I think the most recent read I had was over nearly half are taxed of Social Security generally. So that may be disability, maybe retirement, whatever. And slightly more than half are not taxed because it's that combined income is low enough. So which one you fall into, I don't know. It just depends, I guess. I mean, let's say you had a real high rate, like $4,000 a month. So that's $48,000 a year. And they only count half. That's 24. That makes me think that even at that amount, you're not going to be taxed. Now, the funny thing is that 34,000 I mentioned of those combined incomes, that does not get affected by COLA, and that's a bad thing. That amount has been around for as long as I can remember, and I've been doing this for over 20 years. So I witch about this also. I'm like, they need to apply the COLA to that. That 25,000 that they, 40 years ago said nobody should be taxed if their combined income is 25 or less. Any single person. None of their Social Security should be taxed. Well, if that was the number that was suitable then, wouldn't that be probably almost double now? Shouldn't it be like, well, if your countable income as a single person is, 48,000 or 50, so that means if you have annuities coming in that you paid for over your lifetime, that shouldn't necessarily cause you to have your Social Security taxed, and they haven't collared that. And I think that's when they don't COLA something that is subject to everything else being COLA'd around it, like your benefits are going up, eventually they're going to start to get taxed because there's no COLA application to that combined income determination of whether it's taxed. So I'm always like, whenever they don't COLA something, it is for illegitimate mindset. And I mean that in a bad way. It's speaking out of both sides of their mouth, when it's not COLA'd, because they know it's going to eventually come screw people. Just through the passage of time. Who do I sound like? All right, moving on. Nita says, hello, I'm new to your channel. Nice to meet you. Nita, am I saying that right? I'm new to your channel. I'm currently on step 3 and trying to fill out my functional report and work history. I am unable to walk without assisted devices for longer than 3 minutes. Okay. She goes on to say, I also have issues with my hands and need to take frequent breaks and can't sit too long before I have pain. And thanks for all your helpful advice and videos. Super sweet. The only thing I could tell you is, we have the function report videos. It's a playlist, and I have one for work history too. And I just had a recent one added about the stooping, I think, on the work history report, because that's one of the questions they now ask, which is good. That's all I can really tell you about the function report, because and they go by number. If you've seen them, Nita, it's like I have ones that are just on number 5, just on number 6, number 12, because you don't necessarily want to sit through 10 hours of going through a function report if you can nitpick, because most people probably don't do the function report all in one sitting if they're trying to be good about it. We do have consults, but they're not that cheap. So in which case, then we, hold your hand and we actually type it up for you while we get your information, so you don't have to do the writing and stuff like that. And we make sure it's worded accurately, the way it reflects what you're saying, and that you don't leave any blank or unresponsive, like 99% of people do on some parts of it, or misunderstand the question, or don't think about certain things that would have affected their answer had they thought about it, certain realities. Rip has an appeal in. Good, Rip. Yeah, good. Glad you did that to the appeals council, right? You really had no choice if your DLI is in the past, right? Let's see. All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad, Nita, that you're here. I hope you keep joining us. We have our 12 o'clock noon shares. Those are the pre-recordeds that come out every day. And I don't know. We have fun here, though. This is like the fun day of my week, Wednesdays. So anyway, I think we're going to call it a day, guys. I think we got everybody. It is now 3:30, so we're 2.5 hours in on what I say is going to be no more than 2, but it's kind of hard. I don't want to leave anybody out. All right, but that's why I always say come early, or else you'll be waiting a long time. Anyways, thank you all for being here. I hope to see you next Wednesday. Same bat channel, same bat time. And, anytime in between. If you think of a question that would be suitable for a video, you can email it to me or post it in the comments. And my resolution for New Year is to make better effort to write them down instead of try to memorize them and get to them, because my memory just isn't all that. And things just there's just too much going on. So I'm trying to be good so I can, make a video of them, and then you get your response, and, it can be a share for other people that can help people, because more often than not, any kind of question you have is a question that many other people have as well. So, all right, guys, everybody have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. And I will see you next week. And I hope to see you visiting the 12 o'clocks. I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.